What's up you guys, Sasha here, and today I want to talk about a topic that is becoming incredibly popular in the industry. I'm going to talk about Robo Advisors. It's something that a lot of people talk about. There's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of facts and names and words thrown out there. Some of them are just not true. So I just want to go and bust a few myths, explain exactly what they are, explain exactly some things that I really don't like about them and some things that I think might work for some people, and tell you what I think about them. So let's get right into it. First, let me just tell you a brief history. Now, Robo Advisors have sort of sprung up in the last 5 to 6 years and become a way for people to invest their money in a relatively passive way that somehow optimizes their investments for their particular needs and wants. Now, I remember when I was first starting doing consulting and I began going around all the different conferences to do with fintech and to do with banking around the world. And I went to all these different big events in San Francisco, in London, and all these different locations. And at these events, I saw all of these different little startups begin to talk about this robo-advisor business. And I really didn't like some of the things they were saying. And let me tell you exactly what those things were, because they're still exactly the same things they're saying today. The way a robo-advisor works is it actually goes and asks the person who's doing the investments a bunch of relatively simple, straightforward questions. They ask them about their particular life situation, what they want from their investment portfolio, how long they want to have their money in there, what they want to achieve, all of those types of things. And on the back of that, they go and try to advise or suggest a particular investment strategy. And the way it's explained is this. People say, well, the exact person who's doing the trading doesn't really understand things like candlestick graphs. They don't understand how different portfolios work. They don't understand how different funds work. They don't understand how risk works. They don't really understand the things they're investing in. So what we'll do is we'll make it really easy. We'll allow them to invest in all of those things without understanding what they're investing into. And this sounds absolutely great on the surface, but after about 5 minutes of sitting there thinking about it, you might be right to think, hang on, is this thing genuinely advising people to go and invest large amounts of money in things they fundamentally do not understand because some system has asked them a few questions and that's somehow meant to make it okay? And I have a massive problem with this. I have a massive problem with people investing money in things that they don't fundamentally understand, in things that they haven't comprehended in terms of what the actual level of risk is, how the system they're investing money into actually works. There's so many issues and cases over time when people began investing money into things they didn't understand because they promised great returns. They promised that it would be better than the general stock market. There was all these advantages. And although robo-advisors are not generally one of those things, so many of these come out to be scams, pyramid schemes, whatever. You don't want to invest in something unless you actually understand what it is you're investing into. If you don't understand it, my personal advice, and this is not financial advice, but my personal advice is that people should learn and should educate themselves on what it is they're putting their money into, because otherwise you're just basically throwing it out and hoping for something from something you don't understand to return you some kind of a return. I mean, I don't understand why somebody would actively advise it, and I also don't understand why there isn't legislation that basically should prohibit this type of activity, because it is genuinely a very bad piece of advice to tell people that they should invest in things they fundamentally don't understand. Now, just to complete my disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. I don't know your personal situation, so I'm going to tell you what you should and shouldn't invest into. This is just my personal opinion about robo-advisors and general investment strategy. I have a very strong view that people should be smart with their money. They should really understand what it is they're doing. They shouldn't just go and plunk it into things that are fashionable or trendy or because somebody at work said something and it ignited their interest. You should really go and do your homework. You should really understand what the underlying principles or whatever you're investing into are and what the full spectrum of risks and benefits are before making any of those decisions. Now, let's just break a few myths. A robo-advisor is not a robot. It is not driven by artificial intelligence. No matter what these different websites say, no matter what it is that they're trying to make you believe, no matter what the marketing lingo they put in front of you is, not a single one of these accounts is driven by an actual AI algorithm. Now, I'm talking not just as an investor or somebody who knows a lot about these companies or somebody who works in the financial services industry. I also talk to you as somebody who studied maths at university and somebody who specifically studied some of the modeling behind some of the latest artificial intelligence trends, well, latest as of whenever I went to university. I know a thing or two about how these types of systems would be orchestrated and built, and I can tell you very, very straightforwardly that None of them use anything even closely resembling to something that would actually be called artificial intelligence by anybody who builds those types of systems. It is not even something that is particularly sophisticated. There is an algorithm, and the algorithm asks a bunch of questions so that everyone starting at the top of a tree goes through a bunch of different branches based on the answers that you give, and you end up in the bottom being in one of the nodes, which essentially determines the strategy that should be applied to you. And that number of nodes is usually not very high. There's usually just a small number of different groups of people that you get segmented into based on your age, your investment wants, based on the risk that you're happy to take. And that basically just determines the mix of the different funds and stocks that are going to be invested on your behalf. It is pretty much as straightforward as that. Now, one of the big things in the way that these accounts are marketed is they're saying this is the same or similar to having a human actually advising you on where to invest your money, some kind of a personal financial advisor, but it doesn't have the human element to it. So essentially they're still giving you this personalized advice, but at a much lower cost because you don't have to have the person dedicating their time to doing it. So that means that the costs are also lower. So I've written them down over here. So Nutmeg, which is a big company, maybe the leader in the UK in these types of accounts, they charge 0.75% for amounts of up to £100,000. But remember that there's going to be other costs on top. So on top of the fee that they charge, the money that gets invested on your behalf in the various funds will also typically attract the various funds fees as well. They can be as high as 0.5%, in some cases even higher. The majority are probably going to be around the 0.2 to 0.3%. And there's other factors involved as well. So you might lose money on spread because you're making other people make investment decisions on your behalf. You might lose money on exchange rate fluctuations depending on how the money is entered and drawn out of these different investments. There's a lot of other things you probably won't really care about too much, and they probably won't be significant, but as a whole, it might add up to more than you might think. If you look at some of the other providers just to compare, so Wealthsimple, also in the UK as of relatively recently, charges 0.7% for amounts up to 100,000. Money Farm charges 0.75% for amounts under 10,000. In the US, the situation is a little bit better because these companies have been about for a much longer time and they've had to compete to a much greater degree than they have had in the UK. Generally, the fees are a bit lower. So companies like Betterment, Wealthfront, and other ones in the US generally charge somewhere around the 0.25% mark instead of the higher fees charged in the UK. Hopefully, what this means is as this industry grows and as the competition gets hotter, these fees will also reduce in the UK as well. But here is the big problem that I have with it. If you're targeting something like 6 to 7% returns on your investment portfolio over time, and that's probably on average reasonable if you account all the ups and downs over many decades. So if that's what you're targeting and you're then having to spend 0.75% on the fee and another 0.2, 0.3% on the funds that these fees are allowing you to invest into, suddenly you're paying something like 1% out of the 7% that you might be returning just in fees alone. And when you add the taxes on top, the taxes, remember, don't care about the fees that you're paying. They care about the individual dividends that are being paid. They care about the appreciation of the various stocks that you buy and sell. So when you account for those taxes as well, suddenly the returns that you're making are much lower than you actually anticipated. You generally have three broad options available to you where you can invest money that is not going to go through a Robo Advisor, where you can make the same or maybe more return without having to pay the very high fees. In my personal opinion, these fees are extremely expensive for just a basic algorithm that determines the mix of the different stocks and shares that are going to be bought on your behalf. For example, you can go and do the investments yourself. This is not for everybody. It carries generally a much higher risk, and most people probably actually lose money compared to just investing in relatively safe index funds or something else like that where there's an aggregated balanced portfolio. But you can go and buy stocks and shares yourself. You can go and decide the portfolio that you want to invest in. You can go and buy the individual stocks and mix that portfolio and manage it over time. And you can do that for free with Trading 212. I'm going to put a link below where you can get a free share if you sign up using that link if you're interested. If you can do it for a small fee with other providers or very small annual management fees, it's generally going to be much cheaper to do it that way. You can also through the same platforms go and buy ETFs or index funds or anything else like that, and generally speaking those are also free or have a very low management cost. If you want to invest in some kind of an actively managed fund, you can also do that at a much lower cost than paying for a Robo Advisor. So you can go and pick a fund that works for the types of investments that you enjoy, the basic investment strategy on the risk levels and the return levels people are happy with, and you can go and pick those funds and pay considerably less money than going through the Robo Advisor route. For example, Vanguard UK charges 0.15% per year, plus the same 0.2% cost of the actual funds that fund invests into. Hargreaves Lansdown is 0.45% up to 250,000. Now, those are more expensive than the do-it-yourself options, but they're still less than half the cost, or about half the cost of doing exactly the same thing with a Robo Advisor. So I would wager that you would probably do as well by investing in one of these systems and spending the 5 minutes deciding which fund to go in, than going down the route of actually going and letting a node-based algorithm make the decision for you. Generally, I have a big issue with the amount of information that is actually provided to customers who are investing money into these robo-advisors. There is almost no science explained behind how they work. There's almost no information given as to how they make those decisions on your behalf. Exactly how many nodes are there at the bottom? Exactly what the strategy is going to be for you that is going to be used to make the investments on your behalf. The information is so lackluster, there is so little actually explained, that you have no real way of comparing investing in one of these accounts versus buying a fund or doing the stuff yourself, whatever it is. There is generally so little information that I don't like the lack of transparency, to the point where I would basically say to a friend, if they were asking me, that I wouldn't put my money into it because I don't understand what they're going to be doing with it, and they're not going to tell me. Although a lot of investment companies will say that robots and AI and technology and computers are making all these investment decisions, ultimately there's still going to be a huge amount of human oversight behind it. Whatever they say, there's still going to be humans that are going to be affecting what happens with these investments. Nutmeg, that I mentioned earlier, actually go and say that there are people that actually oversee and actively adjust the way that this robo-advisor process works and the way that these funds are invested into. Wealthify say that everything is automated, but the automated systems that go and manage these accounts still have to be created by humans. The algorithms that decide where money goes into have to be created by humans. When they are adjusted, improved, and managed over time, those algorithms are adjusted and improved by humans. So because this is an ongoing thing, because these algorithms continuously change and improve, ultimately, it's not the algorithm itself, it's still the people behind them that decide how the algorithm works, what it does, and how it manages those funds. So just so that we're clear, it is not some kind of super smart computer that goes and sits there and decides its own strategy based on a super complex analysis of the world's trading and investment market. It is still ultimately driven by people. Now, having said all that, I still think that these types of robo-advisor funds might still actually be quite useful for some people. If you're particularly nervous about investing, if you're really uncertain, and what you don't want to do is to put all your money into one thing and then let that one thing play out over the long period. Let's say you want to invest in a fund, but you're just not sure, is that fund gonna underperform, overperform? What if that fund's performance changes over time? You are so nervous and so unsure that you don't want to actually monitor the situation and move your money from that fund to some other fund because you're not sure if you do it at the wrong time, if you're not sure if you're going to do it at the bottom of the market or whatever else. If you want somebody to essentially be making those decisions for you, if you want the certainty that there is a company that optimizes the flow of money between the different funds and the investment strategies and all of that continuously without you ever having to do anything, in those cases, I do think that robo-advisors could work. If you're very uncertain about investments, but you do want to have some of your money in stocks and shares, if you don't want to ever understand exactly how these different things work, and you just have no appetite for it, but you want to have your money sitting and earning interest and earning dividend yields and earning whatever it is through a combination of these different accounts, then this could actually be the right thing for you. What I'm saying is, if you're a sophisticated investor, if you're a part-timer, if you just have any kind of interest in managing your money over time, this robo-advisor option is quite expensive to a number of different options available to you. So for a lot of people, I don't think they would be the right type of account to go for. In fact, if you're watching this video, the likelihood is you are more actively engaged and more actively interested in investments than the average person. And that is why I'm saying that for a lot of these types of people, I think putting the money into something like a robo investor is probably not going to be the right decision. The fact that you're dedicating time to actually learn and hear other people's opinions and try to educate yourself about how these different things work probably means that you have the means to go and manage and optimize your investment portfolio over time without having to go and spend the money on those expensive annual management fees with a robo advisor. I hope you guys found this interesting. If you strongly disagree with what I've just said, if you have a very different opinion, I would really love you to go and write a comment below. No matter what it is that you have to say, please go and comment. I respond to as many comments as I can, depends on how well this video does. Please make sure, if you haven't done so already, that you go and give this video a like. It is so important. Please go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It lets this video be shown to more people. If you hit that like button, more people like you will be showing this video and they might be able to learn something or make better decisions over time to do with their finances. Please go and do it if you haven't done so already. If you're enjoying this type of content and you haven't subscribed, and I know that something like 90% of you have not subscribed to my channel based on recent viewing figures, please go and hit that subscribe button. Please go and hit the bell right next to it so you get notifications every single time one of my videos comes out. If you don't hit the bell but just subscribe, you might not actually get notified. You might not be shown any of my videos. The bell ensures that you get that notification pop up so that you can go and watch them whenever they come out. Thank you so much for watching this far. I'll see you guys later.